job's finished.
We shall be perfect.
Hey Nuke Knights! I survived an earthquake and a hurricane to bring you day 2 of the Jin Air OSL Round of 8. Starting it off, of course, with Fantasy versus Hyuk, the team matchup. Fantasy's up 1 in this series, and of course all of the Round of 8 series are best of 3. So we might have 4 games today, we might have 8 games today. If they really hate me and my voice, it'll probably be something like 8. Yeah, it was a pretty hefty download, so I'm expecting at least 1 or 2 of these series to go to a 3rd game. But yes, this is always a very unusual day in the OSL for me, because I like casting, but 8 games in a row? Dear sweet God. And yeah, by the end of Round of 8, Day 2, I usually feel like I'm never going to speak again. I'm like, hey guys, it's Nuke! But somehow my voice comes back the following week, which I hope it will this time. But here we go. This is on Gladiator, a 4-player map. Russell Crowe. Here we go. Here we go, Russell Crowe. Except, down at the 5 o'clock position in orange is Fantasy. That means up at the 10 o'clock in beige is Hyuk. Cross positions, 4-player map. Oh, there's some goodness coming our way, I'm sure. Yeah, Fantasy took game 1, but I have to say of Hyuk almost won. Hyuk showed in that game that he can beat Fantasy. He is here to play some freaking Brood War, man. He's not going to alt-tab out to play Solitaire or anything just because he's facing Fantasy. No, he is here to play some freaking Brood War. He played a very good game 1 on Pathfinder of all maps, which there's almost no reason he should have done well on. Especially going up against a mech build. But in the first set, Fantasy did go full mech, but I'd say don't expect that on this map, especially with the cross positions here. I don't think that Fantasy has gone mech on this particular map in the past. Trying to remember. I don't remember. But of course, this is Fantasy we're talking about. Who knows what kind of ungodly, wonky stuff he's capable of. But yes, first of all, I'd like to say that the video quality today is spectacular. I'm going to start a slow clap for Maktiro on this one. Okay, I can't really clap with the microphone in my hand. I probably just made a really loud noise to piss everyone off. Sorry! But yeah, a fantastic video quality today. And speaking of microphones, I've been thinking about ordering a new one with a stand, so I don't have to hold this freaking thing all the time. And feel like a freaking game show host. Yes. I might order a new one. Not exactly sure yet. Because this one does not work with my new computer. I got a new computer, but I tried hooking this in because I kind of want to get everything on one computer instead of having to use 3 or 4 every time I commentate. But it didn't quite work out. So I have 3 computers on right now. My laptop, watching on, recording from my old PC, and I have my new PC on just for the hell of it. I'm like one of those guys in the movies where they're like, they find some tech thing. It's like, oh, we gotta take this to the tech guy. Let's take this to Francis. Then they enter a room. There's like 40 PCs turned on. Some guy with 2 sets of glasses comes over in a trench coat. He's the biggest secluded dork in the world. Yep, that's me. That describes me to a T, basically. But both guys going out to scout the 12 hatch was up for Hyuk, I saw. The second base coming up now for Fantasy. He walled off inside of his natural expansion, and he put down his second base after 1 single marine. Third hatchery on the way for Hyuk and his extractors. Seems like pretty standard openings from both. Crazy, crazy Fantasy. What are you going to do in this matchup? I have no idea. He didn't, or surprisingly, he does not have his refinery going already. You'd expect Fantasy at least want to do a little bit of opening vulture harassment, but it seems he is going to stick with his ground army for now. Alright, there's Fantasy sneaking in. He's going to scout everything that's happening, and the Overlord for Hyuk is going to do all of his scouting information. So let's get some predictions from the Nukenites while we're waiting for these guys to rip each other to shreds. Second barracks coming up. Fantasy searching for that Overlord. He's going to be a little bit late on that, though. The Overlord going to be able to be safe, flow over the ridges with its floating phalanges of death. But okay, here's a prediction from New Tonky. New Tonky writes, Hyuk has had a terrible record versus Terran. Until now. Hyuk with debut, I think he meant will. Hyuk will debut his new ultimate anti-Terran strategy, codenamed Hyuk Style, and destroy Fantasy. Hyuk fighting! 3 exclamation points! And there's Fantasy taking down a Zergling, just a scouting Zergling at the front. Here's another prediction from the Shimmy BW, who is a StarCraft commentator, or used to be. I think he's going to be again. Writes, Fantasy will be laughing Hyuk, Hyuk, Hyuk after his Vulture harass murders Hyuk and leaves him Hyuked up 2-0. Yikes. Lair coming up for Hyuk now, and he does have his 3 hatcheries that I saw. There's STEM being researched by Fantasy at his academy, getting a lot of troops out. Yeah, there's 3 rogue marines just looking for extra Zerglings he can snipe. And the second extractor coming up for Hyuk on the other side. Let's see if he does put down the Spire. I have a feeling that, yes, the Spire coming up now for Hyuk. Standard 3-hatch Muta. And there's a Firebat coming up now. Oh, Firebat for Fantasy, so he is going to push soon. He's pushing right now, in fact. But yeah, with a single medic, that's all he thinks he needs. And if he gets the Firebat in the right position, he might be able to do this. But Hyuk, luckily, had that Overlord at the second base, so he was able to spot when those troops moved out. So now he's going to put down a creep colony, possibly morph that into a sunken colony. Either way, this is good for Fantasy. This is always good to do against the Zergs, to make them throw down a sunken colony, because it makes them expend a lot of minerals and waste a drone or 2. But it seems that Hyuk just has 1 single sunken colony, because he has a lot of Zerglings out. He feels that he could get a nice surround with the Zerglings as Fantasy is attacking. Maybe if he doesn't keep losing his Zerglings like that. Hyuk loses a lot of Zerglings in that attack, but he takes out a scout at the front, I believe. So Fantasy still has a bunch of troops just kind of fanning around, but I don't think he's going to attack with those yet. Unless he gets his +1 at the exact same time he gets to the natural expansion. He is working on that +1 attack. And he scans the natural expansion, seeing the single sunken colony there, so he might push his luck and try to push in. But of course, the Mutalisk will be up soon for Hyuk, so those will be able to defend against us either way, I think. Yeah, the Mutalisks are already being popped from the larvae, eggs all over the place, and here come the Mutalisks. So Fantasy is going to have to fall back and defend his bases. He put down a lot of barracks, I believe. And 1 single rogue Firebat going out there now, probably just going to look for a 3rd base. Hyuk is building his 3rd base now up at the 12 o'clock position, but Fantasy is going to look for it at the 9 o'clock position. He's going to see it's not there and then probably assume that the 3rd base is going to be at the 12 o'clock. Those are the 2 natural places that you think as their player would expand. Of course, if Hyuk were trying to be sneaky, he could hide a base. But it's not very likely, so the Firebat is going to hang over at the 9 o'clock position for now. Fantasy, instead of building a turret behind his natural expansion, he built a bunker, filled that with some Marines, I think, and he's trying to build a couple of turrets next to his barracks, just to protect his barracks, make sure that the medic Marines that are popping out at those are safe. Firebat just sitting there, probably flipping around on his iPhone, playing Plants vs. Zombies or something while he's waiting for a drone. That's probably what Fantasy is doing now, just waiting for a drone to go over to the 9 o'clock position to build a hatchery. But I see just 1 turret at the natural, and Hyuk has grouped up some Zerglings at the front. So he might try to do a run by with Zerglings, but either way, this is going to be extremely difficult. He's coming in now. It might catch Fantasy off guard here. Fantasy's got to be very quick to repair this bunker. The bunker. Fantasy does keep it up with 4 SCVs, so those Mutalisks took a lot of damage. Hyuk's mouth kind of gaping open there. I don't think he lost too many Mutalisks in that attack, but he definitely took some damage. Evolution Chamber coming up now for Hyuk, going to work on those ground army upgrades. Fantasy still looking for that 3rd base, making sure that Hyuk isn't expanding somewhere he might be able to attack more easily than up at the 12 o'clock. Some turrets at a pretty nice position below this base, but of course no turrets to the southern side of the base. So Hyuk has snuck himself down here. He's going to get surrounded though if he's not too careful, taking a lot of shots from these Marines. But a bunch of SCVs went down, I believe. So Hyuk trying to focus in on that tank, but he just can't get in there, losing mutas again. And now he's flying right over the bunker. Oh man. Of course, there was no good way out of that situation. There were bunkers on both escape routes. So that was just bad from Hyuk. He's going to lose a lot there. But he got his Queen's Nest up, working on his hive now. Going to go straight into Defilers, no doubt, to protect his bases from this all-ground army right now. I think I saw the factory coming up earlier. So we're going to have a... yeah, that tank was out, so duh. So a couple of tanks are going to be out already. For Fantasy, he's going to bring those tanks to the front. He has 2 right now, and that should be enough to pressure Hyuk as Hyuk is getting up his lurkers. Quite a few lurkers I saw, the 6. And the mutas are going to be able to help out for a while until Fantasy gets his Irradiate, of course. There was one Zergling scout being sent in, Irradiate being researched now by Fantasy at his science facility. So the science vessel is going to come into play, and I think that's when Fantasy is going to attack. Once he has a science, he has a science vessel already, so he is pushing forward. And the Radiate's going to be done soon, so if Hyuk wants to do something, he's probably got to do it soon. Got to do a big pincer attack. He has the troops to do it if he gets on one of these high ground slivers. It's a very strange map to do a pincer attack on because you got the low ground areas and a bunch of high ground scattered areas, and it's just hard to get the vision everywhere unless you have a science vessel or something in the air. +2 attack being researched at the engineering bay for Fantasy as these lurkers just kind of hovering around. Hyuk is just going to play defensively, I think. He's kind of running down here. Both armies passing each other and both going on the offensive, so both might try to attack. Of course, if Hyuk attacks the natural expansion, I think he will be at a disadvantage. No, he's going to the southern side of Fantasy's army. Because if he was trying to push through the natural expansion, I think the Fantasy's reinforcements would have cleaned that up eventually. So it is good to go on the defensive. A lot of lurkers out now for Hyuk, and I think this is going to be a big engagement. Hyuk kind of biting his lip there, waiting for the big attack and waiting for his opportunity to get the pincer. Because Fantasy is pushing his way up to the 12 o'clock position. He's trying to come up to that. There's Hyuk trying to get in a pincer attack mode, trying to get in good position to do this thing. He has reinforcements coming in. The exact same time, here comes Hyuk, trying to get in there as close as he possibly can with those lurkers. Not completely close, but should be enough to take out these tanks. That is the most important part of the army. Once the tanks go down, and the tanks do go down, nicely cleaned up, very nicely cleaned up by Hyuk. So Fantasy has reinforcements coming up, but I don't think he's going to be able to do anything with those. So yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah, he is falling back. Saw his units kind of going back south, going back down, and now he's got to focus on his 3rd base. Second evolution chamber now for Hyuk. And a couple of factories coming up and the armory to work on those ground upgrades. Knowing Fantasy, it's probably going to be a lot of vultures laying mines. Very good mid-late game against Zerg. Dragging in everything. Firebat. Still playing Plants vs. Zombies over the 9 o'clock position. Waiting for a base to come up there. But Hyuk is building his 4th base at the inside mineral-only base, next to the natural expansion, so Fantasy's probably going to try to go for that soon if he can catch these troops off guard. Not sure if the Zerglings saw that base coming up for Fantasy, though, but Hyuk can probably assume that Fantasy's working on his macro after that failed attack from him earlier. A couple of Radiates going to take care of 2 of those lurkers on the high ground, but Hyuk still has the high ground. It's going to be so difficult to surround those lurkers, push up that high ground area. The Firebat actually gets something done, takes out a couple of Zerglings, I think, and the drone. Luckily, the Defiler got out of there in time. And there's a Muta, a single Muta takes out the Firebat. It looked like a one-shot on that thing. Of course, the Zerglings might have softened it up for the Mutalisk. Either way, it was funny. And there is Fantasy trying to build another base to get a gas. He is building a mineral. He does have his mineral only going now, but he does not have the extra gas he needs to support more factories. So, but of course he probably won't need that much anyway, unless he wants to build more factories, because he's just going to focus on his vultures right now. vulture harassment, laying mines everywhere, and that's how he's going to try to take the map control. But here comes Hyuk again with a defensive bell. There's the Dark Swarm from Hyuk on the high ground area, pushing Fantasy back further and further. And Hyuk is actually playing a pretty nice macro game now. He already has his 5th base going, and he's done a good job of denying the 4th base from Fantasy over the 3 o'clock position. Well, nice plague there on both science vessels. It got some of the medic marines, but those science vessels are going to be hugely important. Could take down each one with a single scourge now. Or if he wants to do that fun Mutalisk thing, just go around with a single hero Muta, take them down that way. The Ultralisk Cavern coming up already for Hyuk. Very confident in his macro abilities now. But yeah, Fantasy switching into ground, going completely for ground. I say this is mostly just going to be vultures. Lots and lots and lots of vultures. Yeah, freaking vulture terrorist. Yep, that's Fantasy. The vulture terrorist. Fantasy's coming in, laying the mines everywhere. Look at that terrorism. Terrorism at work. Patriot Act. Where's a Patriot Act when he needed it? But here comes the drop ship from Fantasy. No telling what he's going to drop. Probably just vultures inside the main to take out some drones. Yeah, Hyuk has done a good job positioning his lurkers in this game. Has them on the high ground, make it very difficult for anything else. And now he knows that Fantasy is going for a mech build. He has his Hydras out everywhere, anticipating this, preparing for it. So Hyuk is playing a pretty damn good game, I have to say. He'll have to deny the 4th base a little bit longer if he wants to really kickstart his macro and his economy. And I think he's going to attempt to do that now. He's running down with some Zerglings, I think, over to the 3 o'clock position, but he got some Hydras looking around, 4 units to take down. There comes a drop ship. Let's see what the drop ship can do. The drop ship's going to work its way up to the 9 o'clock position. And okay, here comes the drop ship. A lot of troops being dragged, the mines being dragged into a lot of Hydras, I think. But there's some Marines, I think, just mostly Marines, and that drop ship, all Marines, in fact. And Hyuk, oh, that one single medic there is going to be enough to make this worth of the plague from a couple of overlords. Actually, Hyuk plagues his own hatchery as well, so that's going to go down in health. But it doesn't matter that much as long as he cleans it up. And I think 2 of those science vessels are in low health, but I'm not sure if any of the rest of them got plagued. So yeah, Hyuk has got to start scourging science vessels. He can't let Fantasy build up that large of a set of science vessels. Oh, D-Matrix of the drop ship. So even more troops coming in. That Overlord went down pretty quickly because it was plagued earlier. And the plagued hatchery goes down. Yikes. So poor Hyuk, he loses that base anyway. But he does still have 4. But if he wants to support Ultras, looking at that Ultralisk Cavern earlier, he's got to keep up his gas. He has the mineral only as his 4th. But he's got to keep taking gas mining bases, getting those extractors. So let's see how much longer Fantasy will pressure that 9 o'clock position. If he will get another dropship, keep going into that position. But either way, Fantasy is starting to take the map control with these mines. He's dragged an awful lot of mines into the ground troops. A bunch of 90s canals now for Hyuk. He's going to need them desperately as he's trying to expand now, because he's got to take a lot of bases to support the kind of strategy, the kind of plan he has going now. With the Ultras, a lot of gas. Here come the Hydralis up here trying to get rid of these pesky vultures that are everywhere. Freaking terrorists taking down another drone. And yeah, still plenty of vultures out, even though half of them died there. Look at all those tanks as well for Fantasy. So he's going to try to crawl right into the middle of the map. Hyuk, in the meantime, is taking the lower 9 o'clock base. Here comes his lurker drop on one of these brand new bases from Fantasy, trying to repair his command center there a little bit. But here comes, yeah. Oh man, so that base is not going to be able to mine for a long time, especially if the Defiler remains in the vicinity. Tanks crawling their way over to the 3 o'clock position. Fantasy going to try to take care of that. But either way, Fantasy is getting pummeled now. His economy being pummeled. So it's a good thing that Fantasy started at 6 o'clock base as well. He has that started, not mining yet. He has it about halfway. But Hyuk could come in and take down that as well if he can get past this tank line. That's going to be the difficult thing. Yeah, Hyuk has got to start researching drop, because he's not going to be able to do this without... of course, he already has drop. What was wrong with me today? I'm so rusty. You just drop those troops over at the 3 o'clock position. Oh, gee. So here come the Hydralas pushing in. The Ultras coming in now. The Ultras are going to be good for Mine Dragon, but there's no mines in the area. So dropping Ultras on top of this, though. So the Ultra is taking down quite a few units, but it's not going to be quite enough. Yeah, especially the D-Matrix there from Fantasy. D-Matrix is one of his tanks at the front, and it gets rid of the rest of those Overlords, so he's going to be able to build a much nicer defensive position at his brand new base, at the 6 o'clock position. I think that just came up, and yeah, now he is mining from that area. And that area has gas as well. One single lurker left over at the 3 o'clock position, so Hyuk is still doing a good job of harassing the bases at least, but he's got to do something about this gigantic army. He's got to catch Fantasy on a minefield and drag some mines with those Ultras. That's what Ultras are best for at this stage in the game, is dragging mines all over the place. Look at that. Oh, that was a mine drag, but not quite the one that Hyuk wanted, I think, killing all of his own Zerglings in that attack. Here comes Hyuk again. He's going to focus on this outside mineral-only base now. He has that Ultra there in the middle of the tanks, taking out a lot of tanks. There's one Scourge landing on the side, but here comes Hyuk. He has reinforcements coming down. He's picking up... I just saw one Ultra go up into that Overlord, so no telling what he's going to do with that. Probably going to drop on top of the 3 o'clock position again and drop some troops over there. Yeah, he's going to drop the troops. Has a Hydralis in as well, so if he can keep the troops away long enough, you might be able to do this, but I'm not sure what happened to the Ultra. I'm pretty sure I saw Ultra get picked up by Hyuk. But either way, Hyuk is pushing down. He's got to get rid of that base down at the 6 o'clock position, and he knows it. Going right through the minefield, getting very close to those mines, but dragging some mines into some SCVs, actually, with these Zerglings, and just kind of biding his time here. Buying some time, actually, by keeping those tanks at bay, but he's forced all the SCVs to pull away from that 6 o'clock position. And there's an Ultra. Oh, the Ultra. Just one. That's where that Ultra went. Dropped inside of the main. Just trying to take out this armory. As one SCV tries to repair it. This is going to be epic. Not sure if the Ultra is going to be able to do that or not. The Ultra very low on health. And splat. Just saw it down there. A little ridicule. Oh, boy. Here come these Zerglings. A couple of Zerglings to defend... Well, not defend, attack this 3 o'clock position. I don't think they're going to defend the SCVs. The medic might do that. Yeah, the medic is doing a great job protecting the SCVs. Not sure if Fantasy planned that or not, but it's working out great either way. I don't even know if a single SCV has gone down over there. But Ultra is still being dropped. Nice mine drag. It was almost a very nice mine drag by mine dragging into all the SCVs. But most of the SCVs survive that attack. Some Vulture harassment on the other side for Fantasy. Just a lot going on now in this game as Hyuk is trying to expand everywhere and harass at the same time. He's got to get some more troops in there, make some more use of that Dark Swarm, because he's done a great job of harassing Fantasy. He hasn't been able to really take on his main army yet, though, and I think it's going to come back to bite him if he doesn't do some nice mine drags, some nice drops on top of those siege tanks. But either way, A moving in like this is not going to get the job done. 4 Hydralisks go down. I don't think that Hyuk knew exactly where those tanks were, or maybe he rally pointed, just wasn't quite able to pay attention. But there are a lot of tanks, a whole lot of tanks out in the field now. So Hyuk has got to do something about that. He's got to get those tank numbers lower by dropping on top of them with the Ultras. Let's see if he can get that done here in a second. He's trying to take the middle, taking care of that barracks in the middle, just floating scouting barracks. But now he's dropped 4 Vultures over at this 9 o'clock position, and Hyuk is not macroing up at a quick enough pace. He's really got to take some bases now. Really got to drop some hatcheries all over the place. Looks like he put down a hatchery up at the 2 o'clock position, just saw that come up, and he's probably going to take that outside mineral only, as he's taking the natural up at the 2 o'clock as well. Okay, there's a Dark Swarm and a Plague. Small Plague, though. Could have gotten a much bigger Plague there on all of the mech units if he'd gotten a little bit closer. Maybe dropped the Defiler down, to get the plague on top of all those tanks. He's really got to plague the tanks. If he plagues the tanks, Hyuk could actually do some excellent attacks here, but he drops on top of the tanks. Not all the tanks were plagued though, so most of them survived that attack. Here come the Hydralisk now pushing forward, trying to take out these tanks. Oh, the tanks take out one of the brand new bases from Hyuk. A lot of Hydras are going down to mines in this game as well, but he did get the Hydras into the 6 o'clock position. I don't think there's much that Fantasy's going to be able to do about that, because most of his army is away. He's trying to clean this up with vultures, might try to drag some mines into those Hydras to the best of his ability, but now he's pulled in with a few of his troops to defend that 6 o'clock base, and he didn't even have to pull away with his SCVs, I think. So Hyuk has amassed quite a few units. If he can get past the mines without taking too many hits, he might be able to be a big threat down to the 6 o'clock position, but still he's taking a lot of mine hits as Fantasy is working his way up to the 2 o'clock position. Absolutely no defenses there at the 2 o'clock, so that base, I believe, is going to go down. There's one tank there taking it out. And Goliath dropped now from Fantasy at the 6 o'clock position, so he is transitioning into Goliath. Siege tank, one hits the hatchery, and the hatchery goes down. It's okay, Fantasy's doing a good job defending this base. He lost a lot of SCVs down to 6 o'clock. So Fantasy, his economy is going to be dwindling soon, but he still has that massive mech army, and that's what he's going to be able to use to get new bases. And plus, he's done a great job of taking down hatcheries from Hyuk. Hyuk has had to rebuild a lot of hatcheries in this game. If Hyuk had had a couple of lurkers, just some Dark Swarm over there at the 2 o'clock position, he'd be in a much better position in this game. But he wasn't able to defend any of those hatcheries, so he's just got to make use of these ultras, get in there and close to the siege tanks. Got to wait for those tanks to siege first, then run in, make them hit each other with the sieged attacks. But no, the Ultra is going down now. The Ultralisk drop, doing nothing against these A-moving tanks. Tanks just A-moving now. Still one plague of the tanks, but still didn't get all the tanks. And that plague didn't get any of the science vessels either. So he'll kind of being unlucky with his plagues in this game. He hasn't been able to get very large clumps of units with those plagues yet. Just a couple science vessels here and there, a couple tanks here and there. Just hasn't gotten that big one that he needs to attack with all these troops. But brand new base coming up from Hyuk over here, and I think the Fantasy's going straight for it. Yes, the Fantasy's going straight for that base. As Hyuk is desperately trying to grab some gas. He needs gas desperately now because he has 3 that are almost depleted, I'm sure. He has the 4th over there, and he's trying to grab another one to support these Ultras. Ultras is very gas intensive. So those Goliaths at the front, cleaning up everything else. This is almost full mech now. I think that Fantasy is transitioning into full mech for the late game. Tanks popping pretty quickly because of the plague, but still Fantasy able to go over here. Let's see if we can get a nice mind drag. Oh, Hyuk, excellent mind drag from Hyuk. Takes down almost the entire mech clump out there, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, Fantasy has the reinforcements coming in. So as long as Hyuk can defend his new base coming up, man, he's still got to put down more hatcheries than he has put down in this game. He's done a good job of focusing down Fantasy's economy as well, but he's just got to keep this thing rolling, especially with stuff like this happening. More vulture harassment from Fantasy down well over at the 9 o'clock position, the lower 9 o'clock, the 8:30 position, if you will. But there is one circling that could drag a mine. Nope. Unsuccessful. But both players' economies have been ravaged in this game, so yeah, normally you'd see both players with entirely one half of the map at this point, this late in the game, but they've both done such a great job with harassment that it's kind of slowed down the pace of the game, and now it's basically a mid-game right now from the two as they both desperately try to expand a little bit more. And Fantasy does not have a whole lot of mineral intake. In fact, he has next to none because he has a 3 o'clock going and his outside mineral only has 2 patches left, and he's trying to get up that 6 o'clock position now as he's going out to harass Hyuk again. Hyuk still, he needs to devote a whole lot more minerals to placing hatcheries, because Fantasy can't do a whole lot of attacks. It can do a little bit of harassment like this, dropping vultures around, which is, I have to say, this is some pretty excellent harassment. A bunch of Zerglings went down because of the mines over here. But Fantasy still chasing around units, taking down a lot of drones, still chasing the drones down. Oh man, just destroying the economy from Hyuk. Just a lot of vulture drops now. So let's see if Hyuk can rebound. One mine being dragged into a larva. Poor little larva. Had a very short, pointless life. But let's see, a couple of science fields are going for the eraser trick. Oh man, Hyuk is running so low on his own economy now. Both players, of course, have a low economy, but Fantasy can last a lot longer on a moderate economy than Hyuk can. Hyuk needs to get those hatcheries, man, and he can't even do it because Fantasy has so many mines placed all over the place. Oh, jeez. It's okay. Fantasy's going to try to do another drop. Unsuccessful in doing so, with some drones being rally pointed right to the middle. That's kind of a rally point mistake, I think, unless he was just waiting for safety, trying to find some safety from these gigantic attacks from the vultures. But Fantasy has taken down so many drones with vultures now. I'm not sure if Hyuk will be able to jumpstart his economy to be able to support ultras anymore. He has 2 ultras out, but I just don't think he can afford much else. Oh man, looking down at his minerals, he has very, very little intake, and I think most of his gas is depleted, which means he's only getting a couple with each drone. So yeah, Hyuk is on the back foot. He desperately needs more gas, more extractors, but he's not going to be able to do it if Fantasy keeps attacking like this, killing the drones, destroying his economy. But yeah, Fantasy's economy is not great at all, but it's still much better than Hyuk's. Both players have extremely low economies, but look at this harassment from Fantasy, insane. There's been nothing that Hyuk can do about it. I'm surprised he hasn't pumped a few mutas out. I just try to take care of that a little bit. They would be irradiated, of course, but look at this tank army moving in now from Fantasy. Fantasy, oh god, this is going to end it right here. There's nothing that Hyuk can do against an army of this size. Especially, he's been forced to focus all of his larvae production on drones because Fantasy keeps killing all of them. So Fantasy pushing forward, and once Hyuk gets a sight of this army, I have a feeling we're going to see the GG after that. He's going to look at the tanks, go, and type the 2 Gs. And then 2 Gs and then enter. There we go. The plague of the vultures, and wow, vultures cleaning up that base down there. And here comes Hyuk. Yeah, he's going to see all of these. Look at this. He's like, wow, that's a lot of tanks. Oh, I hate my life. Yep, that is the face of a man who hates his life right now. And these guys are going to probably make up later in the team house. Fantasy might buy him something. Buy him some food or something he can gnaw on in depression. GG from Hyuk. So Fantasy takes the series 2-0 and moves into the semi-finals. Finals. Or semi. Poor Hyuk, he gets flattened every time these two meet in individual leagues. But okay, let's move on to the second series.